Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, it's the Journalists Roundtable. We'll look at the week's top stories, including a judge ruling against a name change for the No Labels Party. Journalists Roundtable is next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your public television station.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. It's Friday, and that means it's time for the Journalists Roundtable. And joining us tonight, Howie Fisher from Capital Media Services, Cameron Sanchez from KJZZ Radio, and Wayne Schutzke, also from KJZZ. Panel, good to have you all here. Thank you so much for joining us. Howie, we're starting with you. The No Labels Party doesn't have a label again. What happened?
Well, it's funny thing is about that. You know, Paul Johnson, who took over No Labels, which was not really doing much here, decided we want a place for independents to run. And the technical reason for that is that to be a true independent to get on the ballot, you need like 40,000 signatures for a statewide race. If you're on a party, it needs like 1,700. So he said, we'll call it the Arizona Independent Party. A lot of problems with that. Number one is, if you say, I want to be independent, does that mean large I or small I? And number two, which is the issue before the judge, which is, does the Secretary of State have the power to simply say, not only you get a new name, but all the people who are registered as No Labels are now automatically registered as Arizona Independent Party. And the court said, okay, no, I don't think so. And so now we're going to go to the Court of Appeals and decide, is there authority to do this? Yeah,
the authority to do this. Also, the judge called it a bait and switch on the voters who thought they didn't even know who they're voting for anymore.
Well, that came down to the semantics of, is the party the name, or is the party the people that make up the party, and the name can change? Because Fontes was arguing, or his attorneys were arguing rather, that it's not the same thing. The name matters, but it's not the same as the actual political party. But the judge was grumbling and mumbling from the bench and being like, well, what if you call them the fascists, and then people signed up to be in the No Labels Party and then they're told they're in the fascist party? That's not okay. And so that was ultimately his decision. And he said, if you want to change your party, you're going to have to go back and ask the voters their permission to do that. You can't do it without their consent, just on a whim.
What happens to all these candidates that were from the AIP? What are they, SOL? What's going on?
We still don't really know. And that's another bit of confusion added to this, as you know, primary season is just a few months away. Because as Cameron pointed out in some of our reporting, is you had people start out with no labels, then they're switched over to the Arizona Independent Party. Now they're back to no labels, but then you have all these candidates who got on the ballot as members of the Arizona Independent Party. So as you mentioned, probably got a lot of confused people out there who have signed a bunch of ballots saying that they wanted Independent Party candidates on there, and now they may be the No Labels Party, or they may not be on the ballot. We don't know.
But what about the signature requirement?
Well, that's the issue, is if in fact, on one hand, I could make the argument, acting under good faith, Secretary of State says you put an AIP as your party, and that it should just transfer over, because as Cameron points out, it's the same people. That doesn't mean that a certain gubernatorial incumbent or the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, as the case may be, won't challenge the things. They say, you submitted under one name, now you're trying to run under another. Now, neither party, as we know, has liked the idea of a more powerful third party out there. That's why they both sued, and the case that the Superior Court judge decided. In a lot of ways, I think that the Democrats have more to lose. Remember that there are more Republicans than Democrats, not that everyone sticks to their party. Independents make the difference. And that means, since there are more Republicans, that Katie needs more of those independents than does whether it's Andy Biggs or David Schweikert.
And Cameron, the argument, among the arguments from the Republican and Democratic Party, is that it would be confusing. Just from this conversation, it's confusing.
Well, they do have some skin in the game, so I think they would say pretty much anything. That is not really what they leaned on in court, but it's true that we call unaffiliated voters in Arizona independents. That's a pretty common term. So to call yourself the independent party, could it potentially confuse voters who call themselves independent when they see that on the ballot? Yeah, for sure, it absolutely could. But to Howie's point from earlier, they are trying to market themselves as the home for independent voters to avoid those signature requirements, which, by the way, it was Democrats and Republicans who happened to create those really high threshold signature requirements in the first place. But my nightmare as a journalist is that they're going to win the appeal and go back to the Arizona Independent Party, and we're all going to have to write an article saying we've hopped back and forth for the third time in a row.
Yeah, and another thing that's confusing is people who maybe want to switch to an independent. That's where this gets confusing, because you might say no party declared, NDP, and they see Arizona Independent Party and they switch that, and that affects lots of choices they can make, not just who they're voting for at the ballot, but in the primaries in Arizona, a lowercase independent, a truly independent, gets to choose which ballot they want. If someone accidentally chooses Arizona Independent Party, they don't no longer get to make that choice because they're going to get an Arizona Independent Party ballot. So there's all these kind of like cascading ramifications to these decisions.
What's ironic is that this whole thing was meant to avoid confusion, and now I feel like people are going to be more confused than ever if they Google
I know
it.
I am. I'm
Yeah.
sitting over here. And Howie, this was not a win for the Secretary of State, but there was that big a loss for him.
No, I mean, he said, well, look, it was a little of this, a little of that, and I just made a decision that I thought was Democratic small d. And what the judge said is, and particularly to the Secretary of State, who is an attorney, under Arizona law, the Secretary of State has only those powers that are given to him or her by the legislature. You did not get those powers.
Yeah. All right, let's move on here. Cameron, we got the Senate passing what looks to be a teacher pay hike headed for the ballot.
Yes. So this is the latest iteration of many conversations we've had about raising teacher pay, which is actually a bipartisan issue. Both Democrats and Republicans have said they're in favor of raising teacher salaries, and they've said that for a while now. But we've had a lot of issues with them getting to an agreement on especially extending Prop 123. And now Republicans are kind of moving forward with their own plan. It's also been the subject of Governor Hobbs getting really fed up with budget negotiations and walking away from the table because they could not come to an agreement on Prop 123.
But there's also another component of this, is something else headed to the ballot. Every year we get this report from the Auditor General's office. What percentage of each dollar is spent in quote unquote classroom instruction, which means teachers, and some books and a few things and their fringe benefits. Statewide average has gone down every year that I've written about this for the last 20 years. So this says you want to get to 60%, and if you don't, there'll be some financial penalties. Now, makes sense, 60 cents out of a dollar in a classroom, certainly. But what gets lost in all of this is that as the state doesn't fund other things, remember the state lost that big lawsuit over capital funding, over computers and building repairs, then the school districts have to move money into that, which, while there's more money going in, higher percentage in this. And so it's going to be real hard for voters to sort through this and say, well, 60% sounds great, but what does it really mean in terms of what else has to be given up?
Well, yeah, what was the opposition on this? What was the argument on this?
Yeah, so Democrats basically universally oppose this, and they basically said, we as a state are underfunding education as a whole. As Howie mentioned, there's a lawsuit saying we're doing that, and so that it's all good and well to say, let's get to that 60% threshold, but if we're underfunding the whole system, then how do we expect schools to get there? One thing to point out is enrollment continues to drop in public schools, and they have a lot of fixed costs, things like air conditioning a school. You got to keep air conditioning that school, whether you have 500 kids or 1,000 kids. So as enrollment drops, the percentage of money going to the classroom drops as the same amount of money is going to fixed costs, but then you have less kids in the classroom.
And there's one other important point. All this gets wrapped up with, it's all administrative bloat. I mean, that's what Jake Hoffman's been arguing. But even the Auditor General admits, you compare our share of administrative costs of the total with the national, we are spending less of the percentage on administrative. So that's not the issue.
But Howie, that's not been the issue for quite a while. I remember doing this story for years now. The administrative bloat is a small b.
But it comes down to a certain extent what Wayne's talking about. For example, even assuming you can close some schools and cut down on your air conditioning, you've got bus routes. Whether there are 30 kids on the buses or 40 kids on the bus, you still run that same bus route. And if you've looked at the price of gas lately, that becomes an issue.
And Cameron, Senate passes. Is House working on a similar measure? Is that where we are with this?
Yeah, it looks like, as far as I'm aware, Republicans are in lockstep on this, and Democrats share the same concerns across the chamber. But, the governor's presumably in lockstep with Democrats, but if they send it to the ballot, then it won't be for her to decide. And I think it's one of those things where if it goes to the ballot, it comes down to the way you package it and whether voters understand the nitty-gritty of the classroom situation, because, it does sound great to increase teacher salaries. And if you're not thinking about, whether the roof of the classroom is going to collapse on top of that teacher, then it sounds like a great plan.
If it goes to the ballot, Wayne, it's going to make the ballot look even more like a Russian novel. I mean, are people going to vote for this?
Yeah, it's part of this method that Republicans have used this year and last year, where they're sending bills that they think the governor's probably going to veto, but then they're doing companion referrals. So in the event the governor vetoes them, they got this referral going to the ballot, and yeah, we could have dozens at this point.
But that ignores what we know to be the fact. People, if they're confused, vote no. You start out with 60% of people voting no on something like that. And the more things you have there, and particularly if we start getting into, you can't do early voting, you've got to come in and do that 6-page ballot while standing there, people will just vote no or just won't get to it.
Just won't get to it, yeah. I'm going to get to you and Howie this for a second here, because I know you wrote about this, but Cameron, I want to start with you. The idea of more people in the House of Representatives, like there aren't enough already.
No, we should have 1 million more. Yeah, so this is a measure from, I believe, Senator Mesnard. He wants to add on, I think, to get us in line with other states, because we actually, relatively speaking, don't have that many representatives. We've got 60 in the House, 30 in the Senate. He wants to add on so that people have more direct representation. So, you know, you have one person representing you and a few thousand other people rather than 10,000 other people, then it's a more direct line is the concept. But it would be a big change for us.
So instead of 2 for each district, he wants 3 for each district?
Yeah, but it's more complex than that, because right now, as Cameron points out, there are 30 legislative districts, 1 senator, 2 reps. Those 2 reps both represent that same group of people. And so you have a situation where in each district you have maybe 250,000 people, and that's a lot of folks to get to know. If you pursue what Senator Mesnard wants, you would take each of those 30 districts, divide it up geographically into 3, so essentially you'd have each representative representing only about 80,000 people, which might be, you might get to know your neighbors. It would be lower campaign costs because you don't have to send out as many mailers. And to a certain extent, it makes sense. Is 90 impossible? We got 435, U.S. reps. Don't say that works.
Yeah, that's going great. That's a swell example.
But it does provide, theoretically, closer representation.
What do you make of this, Wayne?
I mean, who amongst us hasn't been able to go out and shake 80,000 hands? I'm skeptical of this one. As Howie mentioned before, as you get ballot bloat and referrals and all of that, this is one thing I don't think voters are going to be confused about. And often when you ask people whether it's legislator pay or do we want to send more people down there, you typically get a negative reaction. So I don't know that everyone's going to be like, let's create more of these positions and send more people down to the Capitol.
Well, speaking of legislator pay, there is a cost to this, because you're going to have to put these people somewhere. You're going to put their staff somewhere, their desks somewhere. I mean, this isn't going to be like free and easy, is it?
Maybe we can put them in condemned school buildings.
Well, there's a thought.
Yeah, we are going to have to add on, that's one of the funny things about this to me, because usually it's like Republicans saying they hate the idea of increasing size of government, and this would increase the size of government officials, which means we would have to put them somewhere and we would have to pay them more. But Mesnard also has a different idea, which I think we should bring up because it's tangentially related.
Please.
He wants to make the population sizes more equal amongst all of those 30 legislative districts, and that's a separate legislation that he's been working on. And if that scheme goes forward, then that would also change the makeup of our legislative districts, and I'm really jazzed about it.
And there's one more thing, talk about what's going to be on the ballot. Senator Kavanaugh has a plan to say, last time we got a pay raise, we got up to $24,000 a year. I think that was an 86 or something like that. And, well, we want to keep up with inflation. But the way he's got it crafted, and it doesn't say this, you have to look between the lines, is if, in fact, voters pass this, they get an inflationary index backdated to the last pay raise. So we'd go from 24,000 to 48,000. Add that to 30 more lawmakers, now you're talking real money.
We sure are. It's okay. Anyone overtly for this wouldn't take effect till the next census, so you'd have a little bit of time here to worry about, correct?
After the 40 census.
Yeah, 2040. Okay, so you got some time to mull this. Is anyone overtly for this, against this? Are they marching and shouting for what's going on?
I'd say Senator Mesnard is overtly for it. Other than that, I don't know how many other people. And again, I think this is one of those that's going to kind of get lost in the sauce if it makes it onto this big bloated ballot.
I always imagine Senator Mesnard sitting at his desk going like this, like scheming, planning decades in advance.
Well, of course, remember, this is his last year in office, and he's got all that stuff and built up all those years the House, all those years the Senate says, this is my last hurrah.
Let's talk about a bill here, Wayne, regarding migrants having to show legal status when trying to cash a check, when using banking services and these sorts of things.
Yeah, this is Senator Wendy Rogers. She basically doesn't want migrants sending money back to the countries they're from, and wouldn't let them use things like these documentation they get from the
consulates,
to go use a bank or a credit union or something like that. And it's causing a lot of concern for those communities and also for the banks themselves.
Yeah, what are banks saying about this? Do we know?
Apparently, they would like to be left out of it. Not their circus, not their monkeys. But it is a common thing that migrants do, is if they have family back home, that they work here and they send a portion of their salary back to their families and help take care of them.
So banks, credit cashing places,
anything,
cash checking service, the whole thing. What would you have to show?
Well, theoretically, it doesn't say what you have to show. The way it's worded, it says if the ID, because banks are required to get ID under federal law, to a certain extent, so are the check cashing services. It says you may not use any ID that is an indication the person is not here legally. Those are those matricular cards that Wayne was talking about. It could mean, to a certain extent, if you have a driver's license that's not a real ID, because they're allowed to issue that may not be proof of citizenship. Are you going to wind up not being able to cash checks then? Are you going to wind up not being able to have a savings account? We're not just talking about sending money. We're talking about the ability to
opening an account.
Open an account. I'm working here. I have a paycheck. How do I get it cashed? You go to a check cashing place or something like that.
So where does federal law, where is it in this argument?
As Howie mentioned, there's already federal laws requiring this documentation.
Yes.
Again, this would just get really into the nitty-gritty of saying what you can't use to provide that documentation, which is obviously targeting a very specific group of people. And again, the senator says this is for, regulating security, and that this money shouldn't be sent out of the country, and maybe this could be used for money laundering, so we're trying to crack down on that. Which is somewhat ironic, given she's one of the biggest proponents of Bitcoin at the legislature, which is a form of currency that's been proven to be a favorite of money launderers and criminals and things like that.
She's also a favorite as far as these immigration. How many immigration bills has she filed?
Well, as her favorite, I can say it's been a lot. And they've all been putting the squeeze on at different angles. So if we recall the hospital bill, for example, keeping statistics on people who are coming to the hospital and asking them to make a note of their immigration status, and potentially using that data to, Democrats speculate that data would potentially be used for immigration enforcement purposes.
But Wayne mentions the nitty-gritty of this regarding federal law and the play. I mean, is there a lot of nitty-gritty here going on? Is there too much nitty-gritty going on?
Well, you've got a couple of problems. Most banks in the state are federally chartered. And according to lobbyists for the Arizona Banking Association, what you do here isn't going to affect them because we answer to a higher power, as the old commercial used to go. What you're left with is the community banks, which are the folks who do a lot of lending to small business and such, and you're left with the credit unions, and you're left with the check cashing services. So I don't know that, assuming this somehow becomes law, and I have a feeling there's a big red veto stamp waiting for this one, but assuming this were to become law, would you have anybody who's here illegally saying, I want to go over to Bank of America, which is federally chartered, say?
Yeah. Hey, Wayne, Cesar Chavez Day. I mean, every minute that passes, some sign comes down and some monument and some historical building, municipal building, changes its name. It sounds like the Senate has voted to remove the day from state law. Vote was unanimous. It's an ongoing basis here.
Nearly unanimous. Senator Sally Ann Gonzalez voted against it. She gave a very impassioned speech. Because Democrats really tried hard to amend this to rename the holiday as Farm Workers' Day. They're saying essentially, yes, we all agree that these allegations against Cesar Chavez are abhorrent. He should be removed from the holiday, but let's not erase the history of this movement. It wasn't about him. It was about all these millions of people who participated in this movement. So Republicans blocked that. They didn't allow it. So Senator Gonzalez stood up on the floor and gave a pretty impassioned speech about that, and she was the one who voted no.
That was the full vote, correct?
Correct.
Okay, the committee, I think, was unanimous.
And the issue becomes, like I say, particularly Sally Ann Gonzalez. She stood up on the floor and she said, as a child, I was in those fields. And she had a particularly poignant moment where she pulled out the gloves that her mother used to pick cotton, because so you didn't get stickers, but it had the tips out so you could actually pull the cotton balls. And she said, this is my life that you're erasing. This is saying that somehow the farm worker movement doesn't matter, and all the changes that it took years and years to get. People like Senator Gabaldon talking about her father-in-law, talking about her grandfather. And she said, literally, you are erasing these people by refusing to recognize this movement.
Is there a way, is there a push, is there even talk of a Farm Workers' Day, some sort of honor statewide? We're seeing it through a lot of cities in the state, but statewide.
Not through legislative Republicans. I asked Senator Peterson about it. He said we already have Labor Day. They made a point to focus on Cesar Chavez himself and the allegations and said, why on earth would we want to keep this around? They would not let the Democrats move any of their amendments forward, even to vote on them. And every time the Democrats brought up the Epstein files, which was quite a few, they cut them off completely and wouldn't let them speak. But that every Democrat, the vote took I think a few hours, because people in the committee of the whole and on the third read vote tried time and again and again and again, speech after speech. And people were very emotional and crying and stuff and talking about their family history. My grandma did that too. My grandma was in the fields picking cotton with the gloves.
Yeah.
And it was no cigar.
Yeah.
Now, there are a couple of options here. Number one is the governor, who will get the bill probably Monday, can sign it and then simply say, I am declaring Cesar Chavez Day. Now, it won't be in the statute books, but, and it won't have any legal effect, but I am, issuing a proclamation.
Farm Workers' Day?
Farm Workers Day. Thank you for correcting me on that. Number two is that Senator Tim Dunn, who represents the Yuma area, recognized this is an important issue. And the best he could come up with, since he was bound politically to vote with the Republicans, to say, look, I'm willing to sit down and talk over the interim, meaning for next year, to create a Farm Worker Day. Because I think he recognized it. I think a lot of Republicans recognize that this could be a political liability in terms of November.
And we're seeing it across the state, as you mentioned. Phoenix renamed theirs Farm Workers' Day. I think down in Tucson they renamed it after Dolores Huerta, who was the co-leader of that movement, who made some of those shocking allegations against Cesar Chavez. So there is, I think, support for doing that more broadly. It's just a matter of whether you can get it through the process.
Howie, 4-year moratorium on city taxes, fee hikes, these sorts of things. Cities, they're not amused by this.
Well, this is a case of what they call bigfooting. We know better. We are the state government, much the same way the federal government does it to us, but, that's different. The argument is that cities have certain ability to, particularly fees. You've seen the water rate hikes, for example, in Gilbert. You have other issues where you fees for parks, certain taxes to raise, and they're saying, as a legislature, we are keeping track of things. We're not raising, expenses. We can't even raise taxes or fees without a 2/3 vote. And so why let cities get away with it? Well, cities, we've got 92, I think, incorporated cities in the state, each of which have different needs. Mesa's needs is not the same needs as Kingman or Bullhead City. And they say, we are elected people. We deserve that right. And there are places we've cut over the years. We need to catch up now, and this would lock us in for 4 years.
And we've had a freezing of local food taxes. We had the ban on rental tax. A lot of cities are still struggling with that.
Right. I mean, this comes down to one of the fundamental differences between Democrats and Republicans at the core, the idea of higher taxes versus lower taxes. And Republicans in control of the state legislature are often trying to find ways to cut down taxes, and especially when it comes to local control over their own taxes and what they're used for. So in this case, their argument is, well, it would help out Arizonans overall because it would allow more affordability, because everyone would be saving money, and the cities and towns say, yes, but we actually need the tax dollars, and it would affect our citizens negatively if we were not allowed to collect taxes, because then things would go poorly, like when you go to the park and there's dog poop on the ground, or when you drive on the road and there's a pothole in it, or when you send your kid to school and there's issues because the traffic light doesn't turn on, or the school isn't funded. And so it's those less tangible costs that people end up paying is the other argument.
Yeah, and it's a lot, even some bigger issues than that. As we're facing, water crisis and our Colorado River water is about to get cut, a lot of these cities are trying to prepare for that. They're saying we need more water infrastructure, and that's what we use this to pay for.
But there's another little game that cities play here. Cities put, say on the ballot, we need to pass this override, we need to pass this tax, or we won't have police and fire. Now, it's amazing they don't put the parks on the ballot or the swimming pools or anything else. So I think there's a recognition that what the cities say is people will die unless you pass the tax, and it makes it so, well, we have to keep the police on the street. Never mind all the rest of the stuff we're spending money on.
I've seen a few bonds on there for pools.
Yeah. What about property taxes? Is that in anyone's sights here? That certainly seems like it's a big game for the state.
Well, the state itself really doesn't levy a property tax. They have an equalization tax for schools.
But as far as cities are concerned, what they can do with their property taxes.
Well, part of the issue becomes we have the system going back to 1980 of limited values and full cash values and how much they can go up every year. So that is self-limiting. The big issue for cities is sales tax in a lot of cities, because that's where they're getting the real money from. 2%, 3%, sometimes 4% for cities. And if you've got a city that's got a lot of retail in it, which is part of the reason they fight over who gets to locate the next Walmart, that's really the issue.
Time for a yay or a nay. Is this going to go anywhere, this proposal?
I think if it comes down to the governor, it's probably going to be a no. She tends to side with cities and towns on this stuff. If they decide they want to add this to the litany of things on the ballot, then I think it's a possibility, but I'm not super enthusiastic.
All right, we'll stop it right there. Panel, good to have you all here. Thanks for joining us. That's it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great weekend.
Because kids will always be more curious, Arizona PBS delivers programs that serve as a trusted guide for little explorers. Thanks to you and...
Welcome to Friendship Village. Let me show you around.